A single harsh word during a quiet afternoon with someone you love can leave a stain that lasts for weeks. It usually starts with a sudden burst of anger, followed by immediate regret once the air clears. There's an old story about a blacksmith who constantly yelled at his apprentices. One day, a traveler handed him a glowing, red-hot ember and told him to throw it at a target. Before he could even aim, the blacksmith dropped the coal in pain. He realized that to throw a hot coal at someone else, you have to be the first one to get burned. Decisions made in these moments have a high failure rate. When the heart rate spikes, the brain stops prioritizing logical reasoning and shifts its resources to raw emotional survival. Holding on to that anger functions as a self-inflicted wound. It erodes the relationships and the internal peace we actually want to protect. This lack of control affects even the most powerful. Consider a highly intelligent king who had one glaring weakness. He lost his temper over small inconveniences and allowed his moods to drive his royal commands. While hosting his childhood teacher for dinner, a single fly landed in the king's soup. The king erupted, shouting at his servants and accusing them of negligence. His teacher gently intervened. He pointed out that the servant didn't bring the fly into the room, and the fly itself was a minor nuisance. The teacher observed that the king's own reaction, rather than the fly, was the source of the evening's disruption. External events have no inherent power to ruin a day. They only cause damage when an internal reaction provides them with the necessary momentum. When we experience a fly in the soup moment, the brain undergoes a specific shift. As the mind senses a threat, it moves away from logic and enters a state of emotional high alert. This process is started by emotional triggers. These are psychological tripwires that, when stepped on, create a surge in feeling that overrides the logical mind. These triggers are highly individual. One person might snap when they face criticism at work, while another remains calm in meetings, but loses their composure in heavy traffic or when they feel ignored. Self-reflection allows you to identify these sensitivities before they escalate. When you can see the tripwire, you can prepare your mind to step over it instead of falling into the reaction. Mapping these triggers creates a layer of mental protection. You cannot manage a reaction if you refuse to acknowledge the specific events that cause it. Between a trigger occurring and your eventual response, there is a tiny window of time, the reaction gap. Mastering this gap requires the use of the pause. This is the act of slowing down and refusing to speak or act during that first split second of irritation. You can enforce this pause by focusing on physical sensations. Taking a deliberate breath or noticing tension in shoulders pulls attention from the emotional surge. Grounding yourself in the body anchors your mind to the present. This prevents the emotional hijack from gaining the momentum it needs to dictate your words. Stretching that fraction of a second gives your reasoning a chance to return. It is the mental equivalent of putting down the hot ember before it leaves a scar. Anger, like all emotions, is brief. Without defensive actions, it naturally peaks and dissipates. Problems arise when we act on these temporary waves. We say things in a moment of heat that cause lasting damage, long after the original feeling has vanished. The king's vast political power meant nothing in that dining room because he couldn't outlast a few minutes of irritation. When we allow a brief spike in adrenaline to dictate our behavior, we trade long-term stability for a momentary impulse. Yelling and immediate force are often mistaken for strength, but these are actually signs of a mind that has lost its balance. True strength is the ability to remain observant and patient while experiencing a difficult emotion, even when the environment is unpredictable. The next time you feel the heat of anger rising, remember the blacksmith and the king. Take a breath, wait for the surge to pass, and choose a deliberate response over a blind reaction. Governing your internal state through the pause provides the only reliable path to